What's up, YouTube? Demi here with the final update, like the endgame min-maxed version of my Ice Strike Invoker, also known as the One Crunch Man. I'll link the previous guide, like the budget starter version, and then the mid-tier version in the description as well. But I want to do a quick T16 map showcase with a unique boss so you can see how it performs in endgame maps. There's all the mods and shit. But I also want to say I am streaming again. If you want to come hang out on twitch.tv/demi. You can. I know it's been a few years since I streamed, it's been a few years since I really posted PoE YouTube videos, all that sort of stuff, but I'm trying to get back into it, so if you want to come hang out and support the journey, feel free. You can also join my Discord in the description if you want to talk about PoE 2 or PoE 1, or just know when I go live, or when I post YouTube videos, I ping on there when that happens, so. But as you can see for maps, it still kind of feels the exact same. Even in a T16 map with that plus 68% resist, you're still one-shotting packs because of the Herald of Ice, Herald of Thunder meme. I'm just going to try to find the boss and kill that real quick. But the pack clear is insane. I have about, I think, 200% MF now. Still res capped, except for a little bit of chaos res missing. But I was looking at gear upgrades for this because I've been like constantly upgrading the character as much as I can. And I've realized that I'm at a point where the next upgrades are going to cost me 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 divines, or even like more. And it's not worth it to me at that point, because it's doing everything I need it to do. I don't plan on doing like pinnacle bosses or anything like that with this. It's just a map farmer for me. So I've been kind of in like, maybe I should stop spending currency on this character and start doing the next. Because I bought a new chess piece for like 20 something divines. And then I was like, okay, that chess piece has better resistances. I can now use those resistances that I gained to then upgrade all my other gear slots. Because I don't need them as much resistances on them, you know? I can then go and put that damage mods basically into other slots. But to do that would cost another 10, 20, 30, 40 divines per piece of gear. Or I could look at like saving up money to mirror a staff or something, and that's just also not worth it. We actually checked Path of Building, and the endgame mirror staffs that are available right now are barely better than what I'm using because they don't have crit multi. A lot of the staffs, like we looked at 1300 physical DPS staffs, but they don't have any crit multi. And that was the boss, by the way. It was, yeah, you freeze him instantly with your Unbound Avatar, and then you just drop a bell and he dies. But we looked at mirror staffs with like 1200 to 1300 physical DPS without crit multi because they just don't have it. And this is about 5% less damage than using one of those because of the way this crit damage bonus on weapons works. It's a multiplier, it's not additive with your increased critical damage like it is over here. This is worded as increased. This is just plus to your base, so this is a multiplier and it's massive. So let's talk about it. The skill tree I believe is mostly the same. I'll just quickly go over it real quick. We're still using Lead Me Through Grace. It gives you spirit for your energy shield and evasion on your chest piece, but you can't get spirit from your chest piece or your amulet, for example. So I'm using about a 94360, which gives me something like 120 spirit. So for me, that's enough. If you don't need this much, you can drop like clarity and a few other supports off your auras to get the spirit down a little bit if your chest piece isn't as good. But getting like a 350 energy shield chest, if it has bad resistances, is like a divine or less at this point. So this is the one I bought for 20, which is why it has such nice resists. And I was gonna free up all the resistances from other gear, you know, just cascade upgrade everything else, and I didn't want to do that, so I'm just stopping here. This is the final video. Alright, so that's your spirit source. This is 10% damage with extra lightning and 25% on shocking enemies to create shocked ground. The other side is freezing enemies create chilled ground, but I have a Herald setup that does this for me. It creates chilled ground when it freezes enemies with Herald of Thunder, if I remember right. So you don't need this anymore, I just go on this side. Unbound Avatar is like a damage boost for when you want to start a boss fight, basically. I only use it for tough rares and bosses. Let me mouse over, it's going to cut my mic, so let me just show it to you real quick. You get 40% more elemental damage, 40% more elemental ailment buildup, and 80% chances like inflict ailment. So your chance to freeze, chance to shock, chance to ignite, all that stuff skyrockets, which also multiplies the damage with your bell. It gives you 40% more damage overall. It's just a bunch of damage. As you can see, my tooltip in hideout is 334k. If I put in, so this doesn't show up in tooltip, close combat. But if I want to simulate that, I can put in elemental focus, which is on my bell somewhere, right here. If I put that in here, that's what my tooltip is with like all the actual 25% mores that would be there. Well, actually, this close combat is slightly more because it multiplies the phys damage too. This is only multiplying the 80% conversion for my strike. But yeah, so my tooltip's something like 400, 450k in hideout. In maps, it goes up to like 1.2, 1.3, 1.5 mil with all your buffs going. It's a little, it's enough. It's plenty for every piece of content I've done. It's probably enough for pinnacle bosses if you're good at dodging things, but I'm not. So if you're mechanically gifted, feel free to go that route. The last two nodes here is critical hits ignored, non-negative enemy monster elemental resistances. This effectively means that you always hit them when you crit as if they have 0% resistances. If you have penetration, it doesn't do anything to help you with this. It still hits them as if they have 0% resistances. This is what allows us to not worry about pen at all. We don't need to worry about elemental resistances on enemies, on monsters, on maps, or whatever thing like that. On bosses, it's just 0. So our damage is like effectively true damage. Skill tree should look mostly the same though. I dropped this node because I need another level for the... I needed to grab this, but if you don't have the levels for all these nodes, then just start dropping like the 3 to 4 point jewel sockets. So we got extra lightning, extra cold, damage, crit, evasion, evasion, ES, crit. What else we got? This gives you your power charges instead of frenzy charges. We get frenzy charges when we shock, freeze, or electrocute or whatever. We freeze all the time, so that gives us our frenzy charges from our passive aura, and that this converts them into power charges, which feeds our charge staff, and it feeds our crit chance from charge infusion. This is all crit chance, attack speed, evasion ES, jewel socket, we'll get into those in a second. More crit chance, crit damage, evasion ES, crit chance, crit damage, crit chance, physical damage. We actually have pretty low base physical damage scaling, so you'll notice that on jewels I tend to pick that up because it's like hard to get on the tree basically. Here we got crit damage with quarter staves, attacks with quarter staves, cold and lightning damage when we have heralds active, which we always do, and damage while affected by heralds, which of course we do. Bit of melee damage, bit of attack speed, bit of melee strike range, more attack speed and attack speed per dex, so the more dex you have, the more attack speed you get from this. Crit damage, of course, and more jewel sockets. So, remember I said that mirroring a 1300 PDPS weapon, this for example I believe is about 590 PDPS, mirroring a 1300 PDPS weapon gives us about 5% more damage. So if I'm at 334, one of my jewels gives me similar to what mirroring a weapon would give me. I think actually quite a bit more, because 5% of 300k is 15k. This jewel gives me 29k DPS. And it could be better. This isn't like a perfect jewel by any means. I have a video to show you how to find jewels. I'll link that as well in the description. But you just look for 4 stat jewels that give you damage, basically. So this one is crit damage bonus, attack damage, damage with quarter staves, attacks with quarter staves. The attacks with the quarter staves is really low on this one, so this could be a little bit better. I believe the other rolls are kind of low as well. Yeah, you could get 15, 16, 20, and 4 on all those rolls. So this could go up by like another third or so. And that's basically all you're scaling. Like all of my jewels are giving me that 10, 15, 20k DPS. So if I take out all of my jewels, my damage is going to be like half of what it currently is. So this is just to showcase how important it is to get nice jewels. Start with 3 stat jewels and then work your way towards 4 stat jewels. You still need 1 jewel with rage on melee hit. This lets you ramp your damage through a map or through a breach or on bosses and whatnot. But all the other jewels are just 4 stats emeralds with, like, you know, damage, attack speed, attack damage, attack speed with quarter staves. Magnitude of ailments is nice for your shocks and your freezes. Global physical damage is good. This one has evasion, but it's still 4 damage plus evasion, so it's a 5 stat. This one has life recovery with Flasks, which is useless, so it's a 4 stat. This one, charm effecturation, is the 5th stat, also kind of useless. I would recommend going for the things that give you damage, not the attack speed rolls. Attack speed is kind of nice, but for mapping it's not super useful, and it just means that your mana costs skyrocket. So as you can see, only that 1 jewel, 157k, and you can just kind of watch it. Each jewel is giving me another 10, 20, 30% damage, which for the cost, these are like 1 divine each, 1 to 2 divines per jewel basically, until you get the 5 stats. A lot cheaper than mirroring a weapon, let me put it that way. Where's this one go? Right here. Yeah. So, gear-wise, overall I think the gear has changed quite a bit since the last video. This staff I bought for 9 divines and it had percent physical as runes. It was like 680 with the runes. I evolved it and it hit a 3rd socket, and then we learned that the runes, or sorry, the soul cores that give plus 12, that's the same as the plus here, so it's additive with this and then it multiplies together with all your other multi. So I have like almost 1,000% multi. Yeah, 972% crit multi because of this staff. Let me grab a non-multi staff so you can see what I mean. Or without that. So this has only 37% multi. It goes to 797. Like it's this. Those runes are the same multipliers as like the actual crit multi suffix. So they're very good. If you can find a staff that has really high physical DPS, say 600 plus, and you can replace the runes with crit damage runes, ideally 2 or 3 of them, that's going to give you way more damage than a higher physical DPS staff will, just because of the way that it multiplies. You can get 1,000 plus multi if you have the right jewels. If I had some jewels with more 20% multi attack damage, then this would be over 1,000%, which is obscene. Okay, so other gear. The staff. Most priorities, physical DPS, and then rune sockets for crit damage bonus and crit damage bonus as a suffix. Your last 2 suffixes can be whatever you want. Mana on kill is nice, crit chance is great, but ridiculously expensive, and again, not as important as that crit damage bonus. Mana leech, life leech, mana leech, attack speed, crit chance, mana on kill is good. If you need them, a little bit of dex, that's a little bit of attack speed. But mostly just look for that critical damage bonus as well. So search by physical DPS with at least 2 sockets, and then at least like 20 to 30 critical damage bonus suffix, and you'll find staffs that look like this for 1 to 5 divines. Maybe a little bit more if they're like closer to 600. Helmet. Life, resistances. I stacked rarity as much as I could here. I haven't shown that yet, I don't think. My rarity is 212 currently, so that's one of the min-maxing. As you're a map farmer, you want as much rarity as possible. There are diminishing returns after 100%, but it's still nice to get it if you can afford to get it. Like, my resistances are capped, so I didn't need another resist suffix. I was like, okay, I'll just grab more rarity. Ideally, all of your gear is evasion ES bases or pure ES bases. This one's just kind of a bad ES base, but it's got life, it's got a ton of rarity, it's got crit chance, which you can get on helmets, up to 34%, I believe, and then resistances. Chest piece we've talked about, as much evasion ES as you can, resistances. Amulet, you can get crit damage on amulets. That's your main damage boost here. The other slots are kind of open for whatever you need. If you need resistances, if you need attributes, if you want life, percent evasion, percent energy shield, flat energy shield, rarity, all of those are great options. I'm allocating Storm Charged, which is up here. I think this is the best node for this build. It's 20% crit chance and then 40% elemental damage once you've crit recently, which is in the last 4 seconds. You have like 60% chance while mapping, so this is up all the time. It's slightly more damage than what I was using before, which was, I think, this one, which is 20% crit hit chance and 20% crit damage bonus. That 40% LE is, I believe, better than this, but you'd have to check for sure in Path of Building. We checked the staffs and whatnot. I forgot to check if this was better or not. But one of those two is good. Boots, 35% movement speed, if you can afford it. Other than that, evasion ES, resist, rarity, you know, life, whatever you need to cap. If you need int, if you need dex, you can get it on boots as well. If you want reduced freeze on you, that's also an option. As you can see, I dropped 2 of my charms here. I only have a stun charm, so I no longer have the freeze charm. This is still equipped because I did not equip it after I removed my charm belt, but it doesn't do anything, it's just there. I forgot to take it out. These you can get boots with like up to minus 50 or 60% freeze duration on you. If you're being frozen a lot because you have a smaller life pool, then getting freeze duration on your boots instead of rarity or resistances is pretty helpful there as well. Belt, life, resists. I also went for mana recovery from Flasks because the mana costs with your attack speed can get kind of crazy. If you have a higher level gem, this can go up to like 100 to 120 mana. Like if you have plus melee skills on your weapon or your gloves or your amulet or... yeah, I think those are the only places you can get it. The mana cost can go up quite a bit. So you might want to look for a belt that has mana recovery from Flasks if you're struggling on bosses. You don't have enough mana leech to sustain, then this mod helps a lot. You can also get mana recovery rate as a prefix, but it doesn't give you more mana from each flask use, it just means it heals faster. Which could be good if you're not sustaining, but it also means if you hit that cap, your mana pot stops working. So I kind of want it to be balanced out with like my attack speed, if that makes sense. Like that's how fast I drain, but with the pot, it's kind of even. So it doesn't stop the mana pot from being used all the way. It like just fights the drain basically. So that was a little bit of a min-max that I found there. But yeah, life resist. Otherwise, you can get mana here if you want. It helps a little bit to have a bigger mana pool, so you can spam a bit more before you need to. Gloves. My gloves are basically pure damage with a little bit of rarity. You can get up to 34% crit damage bonus and 16% attack speed on gloves, and then a bunch of flat damage. So remember, again, I keep saying like a jewel is 20, 10, 20, what, the 10% DPS? Where'd my jewels go? Take this out. 300k. If I take off my gloves, these are 60k DPS. These gloves give me more damage to this build than mirroring a 1300 physical DPS staff would give without crit multi. If it had crit multi, it would be way better, but they don't. But yeah, get gloves that have lots of flat damage, and if you need resistances, great. But if you don't need resistances like I don't, go for pure damage. Bunch of flat damage. Ideally, Fizz, Lightning, Cold is better. Fire damage is whatever on this build. It's okay. But ideally you want Cold and Lightning, so that your shock chance and your freeze chance goes up. I have actually 2 sources of fire damage, 21 to 35 and 25 to 45. So that's like, what is that, 46 to 80 something fire flat, and that gets multiplied all the way up to 600 to 1000, and then 1300 to 235 because of all my damage scaling and my multi. Like, it's pretty crazy how strong flat damage is. But yeah, rarity if you want it, if you can afford it, like throw stuff in there. Breach Ring, same thing. As many flat damage mods. I mean, so again, if you need life resist, do that first. After you have all your resistances figured out, go for pure damage. There are breach rings that have like added fire, added fizz, added lightning. They're ridiculously expensive for triple damage because you can put 50% attack damage mods on them. For me, I needed a ton of fire resistances from this ring slot, so that's why it looks like this. It's 60% fire res. I actually only need, what is that, 40 something since I bought that chest, which we talked about. I bought this chest because it has a lot of resistances. I was going to then use the extra resistances from the chest to then upgrade my ring because it doesn't need as much fire res. I could get a ring with more damage basically, but I don't need it, so I'm going to stop upgrading here. I'm done. I'm going to start a new character. I think I'm going to play a Deadeye next. But yeah, life resists. Mana Leech is nice. Added flat phase, fire, lightning, cold, great. Rarity, great. Res, great. Other ring is an unset. You need at least 1 unset in this character to be able to use all the auras we're using. This one is just, again, pure damage. Added fizz, added light, add lightning and rarity prefixes, and then rarity, mana leech, and mana per kill suffixes. I have enough mana per kill, 11 and 21, that I don't need to worry about my mana when I'm doing clearing. And I have mana leech here and on this ring. So during bosses, I have enough mana leech that I can sustain my fighting without usually needing the mana pot. I have a little bit of physical leech as life here, so when you're getting like poisoned or degened or whatever in maps, this keeps me topped up as well, so I don't need to worry about using my life pot much. I believe that's all the slots. Charm, stun charm's nice, freeze charm's nice, whichever one you're struggling with more, use one of those. Life Flask, it's just increased amount recovered, and then if you can get maximum charges or reduced charges per use is good. Whichever gives you the most uses before it runs out is ideal, because during bosses you usually don't get flasks back, so when you need them, you need as many as you can get. Mana pot's the same, increased amount recovered, and either reduced charges per use or increased charges. This one has 9 uses, this one has 9 uses, I think. You can get 10 or 11 if you have a better rolled flask, but you really don't use the pots that often. But yeah, I think that's the final update on this character. So again, I am streaming again if you want to see me live. We've been hanging out, we've been talking shit, we've been selling stuff, crafting stuff, doing what we can. This is my old chest. Oh yeah, if you can get a movement speed chest instead of one without, it's nice, but not super needed. I think that's it. This will be the last update on this character. The next build I'm going to do is a Deadeye something, so if you're interested in that, follow me on stream. Subscribe. Thanks for watching, like the video, leave a comment. See you in the next video. That'll be the video. Bye. Guys, I completely forgot to go over gems. So, let me do that real quick before I actually sign off. But I'm going to leave that sign off in there because it's funny. So, gems, Ice Strike, we got Martial Tempo, Concentrated Effect, Primal Armament, Heft, and Close Combat. Charge Staff, we have linked to Blind, Conduction, Coursing Current, Overcharge, and Culling Strike. This gives you a good chance to shock and blind everything, so your evasion gets multiplied. And then when it does shock, it gives everything around it that same shock, and we're multiplying that shock magnitude by this as well, so it's a really strong shock. And then against bosses, you have Culling Strike. Tempest Spell, we have linked to Heavy Swing, Elemental Focus, +1, so you can have 2 of them. Font of Rage for the rage when you're doing bossing, it just helps ramp your damage a little bit faster. This could be increased duration if you don't care about this because you have a rage on hit jewel. You don't need this, you can use increased duration if you want your 2 bells to last longer. But I find that I attack fast enough to kill the bells. It's destroyed after 25 hits, so I don't usually need it to last longer. But yeah, up to you. If you don't have the attack speed, switch this to more duration, you'll be fine. And then last is Soul Thief for the mana leech, because when you slam this thing down, it hits for a ton of phase damage, and you leech enough of that that you can just keep spamming it every time it's off cooldown, basically. So it's great. Heralds, we have the dual Herald setup. We have Herald of Ice set up to shock things, and Herald of Thunder set up to freeze things, so they chain off of each other and blow everything up. So we have Lightning Infusion, Innervate to give us more lightning damage when we kill shocked enemies, which everything this is killing is shocked or frozen, so that's up all the time when you're mapping. More AoE, Long Shot, so it deals more damage as it gets away from you, and then Execute, so it deals more damage to things that are on lower life. Herald of Thunder, we have it giving it cold damage so that it freezes, and then we have attacks get cold damage when it freezes an enemy, which is constantly. It gives more freeze real whip so that it can freeze in higher tier maps, and then it has more crit chance against enemies against full life. And then this is what replaces that Ascendancy that I talked about at the very beginning. This creates Chilled Ground when it freezes. So does this so does the support gem. So you don't need the Ascendancy node. This just leaves Chilled Ground all over the map whenever you use it. You're killing packs, so everything's just slowed down and can't get to you as fast. Great. The reasoning behind the more crit chance and the execute here, we believe that the Herald of Thunder is what hits first. So it hits first, it freezes them, and now that they're frozen, Herald of Ice can go off, so they're lower health. That was the reason behind these two. I believe it's working. It seems to make the clear a lot more consistent. Even in high tier maps with like Monster Life, Enfeeble, and Elemental Resistances or whatever, or sorry, Ailment Threshold, we still have enough freeze chance from this that they're getting frozen anyway, and we're still getting that pack explosion in those types of maps. So I believe these two are optimal. Aura-wise, this is why we have so much Spirit. We have Ghost Dance. When you're hit, you get a Ghost Shroud, or sorry, when you hit, you consume a Ghost Shroud. You have like 5, I believe, and it gives you 5% of your evasion back as Energy Shield. I don't have that much evasion because my gear is not evasion ES bases like it should be, but if you did have that, you could have like 10, 15k evasion, and you'd get back 5% of that, which is like 1,000 to 1,500 ES instantly when you're hit. That's a big safety net. We have 5 of those, so you can get hit up to 5 times and keep recovering ES instantly before your ES will actually deplete. It's very strong, very good if you're a hybrid style build with evasion and ES. The next one is Wind Dancer. This gives you 90% more evasion rating per stage, so that's times 4. We're getting a ton of evasion from this, more than our tree gives basically. And then when you do get hit, it consumes those to do like an AoE attack that pushes things away from you. It does a lot of damage actually. It'll kill white mobs if they hit you in melee, and it'll also maim them, which slows them down and gives them less evasion, so they're easier to kill and harder for them to get back in melee range to hit you again. Combat Frenzy is what gives you your Frenzy Charge generation when you freeze, which is all the time. Everything you hit is frozen basically. So this provides you Frenzy Charges. That skill tree node that we talked about converts those Frenzy Charges into Power Charges, which is what you then feed to your Ice Strike, or sorry, your Charge Staff to activate your Charge Staff. And you can free those Power Charges to Charge Infusion, which gives you 19% more critical hit chance while you have a Power Charge. It eats a charge every like 6 seconds. You get a charge every 1.5 seconds. So they feed off each other, and you just have full charges the whole map and 19% more crit, which is a lot. That 47% crit I think I have base goes up to like 60% crit or 58% crit or something. So my crits become very reliable at that point. And then supports for these. Combat Frenzy is linked to additional charge. You don't really need this. If you have room, throw it in there. Same with this. You don't need this. If you don't have the Spirit, you can take out Clarity and it's fine. Fast Forward as well. You don't really need this, but it's nice to help get your shrouds back. You know? But yeah, I think that's everything. I don't think I forgot anything this time, so sorry about the jump cut and second goodbye. But thanks for watching again. I'll see you in the next video, and that'll be Demi out.